Welcome to the No Camps podcast. I'm Sunny G.
I'm Akash.
I'm Jason.
And here on the No Camps podcast, we discuss a variety of TV and film. And our topic for today is none other than Stranger Things. We want this episode to be essentially like a companion guide for the listeners through season 2. But we're going to give you guys a quick refresher on season 1 if you guys haven't watched it or haven't had time to catch up. So we'll give you, the overall plot summary, some of the major points of season 1, then dive into our analysis of season 2. That sound good, guys?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. Real good.
All right. So jumping right in, season 1, super fun, right? The show starts off with a very like horror movie scene. There's a scientist running away from something, we don't know what. Jumps in an elevator, he gets eaten or taken by something, and eventually we find out that there is a creature from another dimension that's been unlocked due to various studies I've been doing with this girl who has psionic powers, who we learn is called 11 or Jane. During this event, she escapes. She makes friends with some of the kids from the town called Hawkins, Mike, Dustin, Will, and Lucas. And then the story is just about the kids helping 11, right? Did I miss anything? And beating the demon monster, essentially?
No, that's about it.
Well, and I mean, I think the big part of the plot is like Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
That's like a huge part of their So that monster is a demigorgon, and the other dimension that they go to is like the upside down, which isn't it? It's a Dungeons and Dragons term too, right?
That I'm not sure. Is it?
Wait, what?
Is upside down a D&D term?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know. Yeah, so a lot of this show draws its nostalgia from 80s, right? 80s media, film, pop culture and everything. And I don't know about you guys, but I think a lot of the 80s influence that I have come from people that are influencers rather than from my experiences, right? I mean, we were both all born on the tail end of 80 and didn't really get to experience much of the culture other than maybe the movies. I mean, what is something from the 80s that you guys enjoyed? I mean, Ghostbusters and
it's like
Terminator.
music, film, and TV. Yeah. That's like where we all really get our 80s.
Right.
Yeah. And this show is a perfect distillation of everything Hollywood has sold us about the 80s since the 80s.
Yeah. But they do it so well. Like they do it really, really well. Like remember that movie, Hot Tub Time Machine?
Yeah.
Great movie. And they they take you back to the 80s, and they do it like the cheesy way. And they kind of like really cram the 80s down your throat. And so it's like this shows you like this is like really well done. The 80s like complements the storyline really well too. Like they do a super good job.
Yeah, it's, like
it's weird because
Hollywood was like we heard you like 80s, so we made a TV show about the 80s.
No, it's like it's not even that. It's like we heard you like the 80s movies, like The Goonies, It, E.T. Although I guess E.T. maybe isn't the 80s, I'm not sure. So yeah, let's rehash and combine all of those stories into something that our algorithms tell you will like very much.
Exactly. And safe to say, they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and they nailed it, right? Just like House of Cards, they fucking got it.
They did it right.
So Sonny, give me some of your overall thoughts about season 1.
I loved it, dude. It's I know we'll talk about season 2 later, but like it's a well done derivative only really in style, but otherwise really captivating, really interesting, and kept me on the edge of my seats the very first time I watched it. Like I was immediately hooked from the end of the first episode. And even on this rewatch, knowing everything that was going to happen, I'm still like intrigued. Like I obviously see a little bit more holes and I'm not as like blown away, but it's still really captivating and like just really well done. Like the cliffhangers and cold opens on this show are like top notch.
Yeah.
I mean, even season 2 kind of comments on this a little bit. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but they mention that season one was a little derivative and unoriginal in certain parts, but I think some of the call outs were meant to be on the nose and they were just perfectly done, being referential to the 80s. And I think it's very nuanced and it works really well in its favor. So, what about you, Jason?
Yeah, I think Sonny told me about this show, and when he pitched it and when everyone pitched it, it was kind of like, hey, it's a show that takes place in the 80s. It's with all these kids, and it's kind of like The Goonies. And I was like, all right, I don't want to watch that at all because child actors are terrible. And like the 80s are cool, I guess. They're not that cool though. And yeah, I wasn't that into it. And then it's one of those shows when I watched it, I was so angry that I just wasn't on board from the get-go because it is so – I loved it. It was so good. Like I watched it 2 times. I watched it and then like a couple weeks later I just was still thinking about it, so I had to watch it again. And yeah, I mean they like Sonny nailed it. I mean they do the cliffhangers and the ending so well. Yeah. And yeah, I just can't say enough about those child actors though. Dude. They sell the whole show. The show would be like mediocre if they don't like sell those performances. And they all of them, every single one of them, and even in the season, dude, and even the new girl Max in season 2, they're all just really, really spot on. I don't know how they found like this perfect combination.
The children are easily the highlight of the show. They got the lotto ticket on these child actors because
all of them. And then we'll get into. I'm gonna get into like Will's acting too, but and even like the creativeness of it, just like using. So it takes place in the 80s. So like I said, you could be really cheesy with that. Like some movies will just take advantage of like the nostalgia of it, but they actually like use elements of the 80s.
No.
100%. To feed the story. Yeah. So they used Dungeons and Dragons, which was big then. I was talking about this with someone recently. What I also love about like that show is they're using walkie-talkies. They're riding their bike. Like they're using like very practical means to like do what they do. And I feel like that's like really lost, especially on kids now, who have cell phones and social media and all kinds of stuff to connect to their friends. It's really cool that they have that as like kind of a plot device that, these kids have to like coordinate, and that's constantly, a part of the story too.
I don't know. Though. It's walkie-talkies back then weren't cheap, I don't think.
Those were nice too. Those are like big. Nice. Those are awesome walkie-talkies.
But like you said, Jason, this is like a straight throwback to 80s film style, like filmmaking and like horror writing. Like you could see all of the cues just on the screen. It's really well done. So.
And one of the great parts about this show is that they do the 80s better than anybody's done the 80s. Yeah, especially the 80s. Like a show like this, I mean, it really, if you guys have seen it, the miniseries, it's just, I think 3 or 4 parts, 1 hour each.
Right.
That I would say is maybe the closest resemblance to this. Because the child actors are put in similar like compromising positions where it's kind of them against the rest of the world, in particular when they can't really rely on the adults, although that changes later in this season. But all the protagonist is in that movie is a clown, except for the very end of the movie when it's exposed to be this ugly, unbelievable like spider creature, right?
An alien creature, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't have a Demogorgon. You can't have the kind of vines and the upside down place. You can't even have like the continual falling of like decayed snow that's always coming down, in the upside down place. Like you can't have it to that scale at any other time. So like CG was such an important part of the show, but it never overpowered the show. It just made the 80s feel like that much scarier and that much more real.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I always perceived that as ash and not as snow.
It could be ash too, yeah. Well, I mean, nothing looks like it's on fire, right? It all just looks like it's been just rotting.
Like pieces of decayed material, just constantly, like What they also do, that you kind of reminded me, Sonny, is they with this season and season 2, they do the scary moments really well. The show is not scary, so like when you describe it, it's not a scary show, but there are moments like when your heart is really racing at times, and when they go to those other dimensions, or like when Elle's in that contraption, whatever she's in, to like go to that other dimension, it's just like that blackness with that still water. Like it's freaky.
They do use jump scares a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sonny. I want to go back to what you're saying. This also is very similar to the new It, and the new It universe fits right into the Stranger Things. Like it could be in the same anthology like universe or whatever. So
And that's another good example of a movie doing the 80s
Right.
better than the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Because again, like even though it's just really about a clown, the stuff they do in it I just recently watched it. It's really good effects.
And you were actually correct. E.T. came out in 82, and there are some scenes, especially in season 1, that they, I think, kind of borrow a little bit, especially with the bikes and everything like that.
Oh, and hiding L.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, I thought a bit more as E.T. than the Goonies. A lot of people, I think, just used Goonies a lot, and I thought when I watched it, it was like way more like E.T. I mean, she's kind of E.T., right? Elle is E.T.
For sure, yeah.
Fighting from government agents, the young kids. Yeah.
Well, it's also been allegorized as a story of, Jesus with Will dying and coming back to life.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Just
Isn't that always? Don't they use that for like every story?
For
too?
everything.
Isn't it like every story. Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have any other thoughts on season 1?
Yeah, I didn't like Mike. Is that his name? Mike?
Really?
I thought he was obnoxious the second time around. He plays his role really well. I didn't like his character. The actor is fine.
You're talking Mike, Nancy's brother, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a little shit. I didn't care for him that much.
But in season 1, I mean, we're still saying like season 1.
Actually, really, the only kid that I really cared for is Dustin.
In season 1?
Dustin's
In
awesome.
season 1, yeah, he's awesome.
I really
go ahead.
dislike Steve. He played the D-bag so well.
I love
And-
Steve for that reason, though,
He had
because his arc is the best arc ever. Like, that was incredible. I
Really
love
redeeming.
Yeah.
He's a great arc, yeah.
Great arc.
Yeah, they play off that trope of like, that typical 80s douchebag. And then like they surprise you in the end by like he's like a redeemable. He's my favorite guy in season 2, by the way. Like I love Steve is awesome.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, dude, for sure. I mean, I'll get in that when we talk about season 2.
Yeah.
But he's definitely the coolest character. And Winona.
Jeez.
Winona?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Killed
she kills it. I mean, she cries so much. I mean, I got to give her a lot of respect. That was like 8 straight episodes of crying, and she seems so
like Carrie Fisher from Homeland levels of crying, and it's getting a little tiring. But
it was a nice
good
break
at it.
though. Season 2, we don't when she wasn't crying. There was like multiple episodes she's not crying. You're like, wow, this is really nice. You feel really.
Question for you guys: why doesn't the monster kill Will? Season 1.
Yeah, no idea. Huge plot point.
Huge
Or plot hole, I mean. Yeah.
When it escapes the lab, it is probably the weakest it ever has been and needs energy and food, and it captures the easiest target ever, but I'm just gonna disappear with your ass. It's gone.
I don't know. Did he take the gun with him? Or did the gun
Will?
stay back?
The
Yeah.
little BB gun?
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't know. I don't remember seeing that.
I don't know. Maybe he shot him, but yeah, even then, it's not a good explanation.
Maybe they just wanted like a human to implant one of those things in. They needed someone like Will as like a vessel.
Maybe.
That could be.
Yeah, but even then, he didn't mouth rape him until near the end of the season.
Yeah, that's not like an actual. That's like a retro applied explanation to what that's fitting our narrative. Yeah.
Also, let's give credit to the guy who plays Hopper.
Yeah.
He did a great
He's
job
awesome.
season 1.
Yeah.
He's my favorite character.
When they show
He's a
you
badass.
his experience with him losing his daughter, that was
Yeah.
Dude, that was good. That was very well done.
Oh, and again, sorry, last thing.
Yeah, go
the end of season 1 had, like you always suspect that they're going to try to make a sequel out of it.
Yeah.
But like, what a way to tease another season.
Oh
right?
my, you're right.
He
Yeah.
just like flashes in and out
Oh
of
my
the
God.
upside down, and he vomits up that worm. Like,
Oh
Yeah.
you're just like, holy shit! Like nothing will be the same, right? Unlike E.T., where the movie just kind of ends, wraps it up with a little nice bow.
Yeah.
This show is just like, no, things can get a hell of a lot worse than they already are.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I finished season 1, I was completely satisfied. At that point, I was like, if they don't have a
Yep.
season 2, I'm totally good
Yeah.
with the story.
Yep.
We can
Yep.
leave it where it is. And I was kind of disappointed to hear season 2 is coming out, because
Yeah.
it'd be great if this was like, I've been saying anthology so much on this podcast, but it would be great if it was an anthology and like next season or this season it's in another town and some other weird shit starts happening, right? But yeah, either way, as it's a standalone piece, season 1 itself was great. And
Well, but to go on Sonny's point too with that end scene, I love that they kept that too, because my fear too was like, Yeah, they just wanted to hint that there's another season. Something's up with Will, and then Will's going to have like a different arc in the next season. But I like that they hinted at like his new power, his new foresight, or whatever they called it, and they kept going with that. They were like consistent with like, oh, that shit that you saw at the end of season 1, that's coming back. That's a big problem for Will.
Yeah.
I like that.
On to season 2, guys.
And it's a great way to say it, Chip.
So coming into season 2, I decided to watch the trailer, right, just to see, the teaser trailer and stuff. And I wasn't gonna lie, I was a little bit worried. This trailers looked very, very CG heavy, and that kind of scared me a little bit. But after watching season 2, I think they did a good job. It was perfect. So no complaints on that front. So, Sonny, where do you stand on season 2?
Not as good as season 1, but entertaining.
Yeah.
A little slower at parts, not as like groundbreaking, either in terms of like just general context of like, wow, I never expected this kind of show to exist, and it's so awesome that it does. But also like in terms of plot, it seemed to feel like, rather than go the direction of, all right, let's take what we did capturing the 80s, but then let's go off in a new direction. They were like, nope, let's play off a different set of 80s movies. And in this case, it was like exorcism movies, exactly. Right? Yeah. Exorcism / a little bit of Jurassic Park elements,
Right. Any Terminator? I mean, they referenced Terminator like 2 or 3 times at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, though. What about you, Jason?
No, I really liked it. Kind of like Sonny, I liked the first one better. But for me, if the first was like a 10, this was like a 9, or like a really close to it. Yeah, there were just some moments that I didn't like as much about it. I did like, contrary to Sonny, I did kind of like that some of the tone shifted a little bit, because I like that. I felt like throughout the season they kind of played homage to different types of like horror movies and elements of horror movies. So I kind of like that in that sense. And I really like the way that they develop the characters more. I think, you really get to know these characters a little bit better. And I like how they kind of develop the relationships between different characters a lot in the season. But it just didn't have like that gut punch that that first season had, man. When Elle dies in the first season, dude, I was devastated. That's why I didn't want a season 2. Because I was like, yeah, I mean, she was awesome. And, it's going to end with her dying. It's like such a cool way to end this show. Her, and then I was so happy when she survived. You just like, oh yes, but so I didn't feel that as much this time, and like the twist at the end, that cliffhanger at the end was not nearly as good as it was in season 1. But I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely gonna watch it again.
I agree with both of you guys. I'm right there with you guys. It was a lot of fun to watch. Again, it's nothing groundbreaking. It does get a little slow in certain scenes, and we can get into a little bit later, but there's some parts where I wasn't sure at the time if I liked where they went with the show and direction with the plot. But overall, I think it was pretty tight. It's a good addition of season 2. It's like a great second part to this. I mean, the way I described to you guys, like, it's 2 like 8-hour movies, right? So, but you get a ton of character time, which was well done, and we got to see some of the other guys shine a little bit more. Because I think last season focused a lot more on Mike, Eleven, and Nancy, and Jonathan, and Steve, right? So we got to spend a little bit of time with other characters. But I think overall it was a lot of fun. Do you think the way the show's released, it helps or hurts it? I think it only can help the show, right? The way Netflix lets you binge.
Yeah, you can binge through it. And people love that. You can just binge through it. Yeah,
you binge it, then you talk about it a shitload for a couple weeks, and then everybody just keeps tweeting out how they can't wait for the next season.
Exactly.
For the rest of the year.
That's the thing with season 1. Season 1 was such a darling on Twitter, and I think that's how it gained a lot of its traction. And social media really ate up Stranger Things. So.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
About season 2. How did you feel about the fact that Elle doesn't really join the group until the very end? Like, did you want Elle to be there early, or were you happy with kind of having a separate storyline of like Elle's development?
No, I was quite saddened by that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It just didn't flow as well, and I couldn't buy that a 13-year-old was getting on a bus and meeting. I mean, I guess she has superpowers, but like, I just couldn't buy that part. It just didn't seem
I didn't.
Yeah.
That was my least favorite episode this time. But I agree too. And like, I even said I like the character and the character relationship development so much. But the ones that I really wanted to see was like the boys and 11. And
Right.
It's like, you just really don't get to see that. You feel like they've changed and evolved by the time that they see each other, which may be something that they explore more in season 3. Because I guess they're doing 4 seasons. But yeah.
Oh, has that been announced?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the plan.
Season 3?
It's 4. I think they're doing 4.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I definitely can see them doing that.
Yeah, I actually think my favorite storyline was Elle's and Hop's relationship.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I came to like Hop a shitload more this season, just watching all the the crap he has to deal with.
Dude, he's like the dad to Will and to 11.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Yeah, he's a badass.
Biggest surprise.
And I really like the...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm going to change the subject, or I'm going to talk about another relationship that I really liked a lot in this season too.
Right. Yeah.
Which was Steve and Dustin. I thought their relationship was awesome. I love their on-time screen together because like Dustin's my favorite. He's the coolest together.
That was fun.
And Steve is just a badass too, man. How many times has like Steve like jumped in the way? Steve was like on his way in to go apologize to Nancy, gets like pulled aside by Dustin. 10 minutes later, he's like fighting those little demi-dogs, like 10 of them, and like running for his life and like willingly putting his stuff in it. Yeah. He like stepped in front of that douche. I forget his name, the brother, like knowing he was going to get his ass beat. Like,
Billy
dude,
the douche?
Steve's the man, dude. And then not only that, his girl left him for that creepo who was taking pictures of them. And just is just rolling with it, he's just like rolling with the punches. Steve's a badass.
Yeah,
I agree. That was such a fun storyline too. Just them, the older brother, like Dustin never had, giving him like brotherly advice and things like that. That was fun.
And then at the end, he's like kind of standing there and he's like looking at the girls that aren't gonna go dance with him at the dance, and like you realize like he and Steve are kind of the same. Like they're both like these girls. Like he liked Max and she left him for another guy for Lucas. So it's like they're kind of the same guy, And they kind of had like the same sensibilities in the same way, in a weird way.
Interesting.
Like, I like their relationship.
Yeah, it was definitely like closer and warmer than I was expecting. Considering that I don't remember if they had a lot of on-screen time together in the first season.
Barely. No.
Yeah, not much. But they've all been through it. I'm assuming it's just like it's been a year. Like they're all like in the know. There's like a group of them that know what's up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we know what's up. So we have like a bond. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of which, I thought that was a great element. Like, I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but the whole element of like, look, this is something that belongs to us, and if we tell other people, we get killed.
Yeah, we'll die.
Thrown in jail and die. Yeah. I thought that was a really an interesting element. Which again, yeah, it's like it's obvious that if they were playing on any level of realism, that was going to be the story. But I think they did a good job about it.
Yeah, it's great that they use the fear of communism to keep them to shut their mouths, because they talk about like, if anyone finds out, the Russians will use this weapon against us. You know what I mean? And
again, nice reminder that we're in the 80s. Yeah.
And fucking Mike's dad's like, we're a house full of patriots.
We're a house full of patriots. Dude, not a single line that schmuck has said in the show has been either correct or useful to any of the other characters. Like he's hilarious. Just flat out bullshit, like, oh no, he's gonna be fine, honey, or shit like that. We're a house full of patriots.
Or when he's just like sitting and reading, and like his wife's on the phone with somebody, and like someone's knocking on the door, and he's just like, just staring, like, what's gonna happen? Are you gonna get this? She's just that guy.
Yeah, which is no wonder why she was looking at that kid, being man, I let him jump my bones in a heartbeat, so I don't have to deal with this fucking jackass of a husband.
It's so great,
man. That was so funny because like even Dustin calls out his dad. It's like, do you even know what's like happening in your own house? Or like, it's so self-referential. I love it.
He had some incredible scenes too. Yeah, what did he say? He's like, "Oh, this is bullshit," and he's like, "Watch your language, young man." She's like walking away.
That was great.
That was great. Oh man, what about Lucas's sister? We're not going to talk about her much, but that little girl, she killed it too. She
So
was,
good.
yeah, she was great. That attitude, man. She had an incredible attitude the whole time. It was awesome.
Giving him so much shit for playing with dolls, and it's like,
Yeah, dressing him as a Ghostbuster.
now I see why you only have guy friends. And it's like completely roasting him on a daily basis.
Yeah, he was awesome.
All right, guys.
All right.
You guys want to
Let's
move
do it.
on to recap the episode? So,
Yeah.
one thing I will say is the episode names are really fun.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, Sonny, I love in the show how they give you like a 2 or 3 minute intro, and then it jumps into the opening scene for the music of Stranger Things opening credits. So I love how they have teaser before every episode, and then like really drop a bomb, or it's really effective, and they jump right into the show.
Yep.
So
Well, also on the note of the names too,
Yeah.
like I noticed that there's some names that they talk about, like later in the series, the season. There's the names of the episodes that are things that they reference earlier in the show,
that's right.
which is kind of cool too. So that way, when you see the name of the episode, you kind of have an idea where they're going.
All right, so episode 1, and give a little shout out to Wikipedia for these episode summaries. They're pretty concise. So almost a year after the events of Will disappearing, the show opens up and you see an Indian girl, which is nice to see on TV, with a tattoo identical to 11 with the number 008, and she seems to be in a gang. We don't know. She's with a posse of bunch of weirdos, it looks like.
Miscreants.
And they're escaping the cops, and then you see that she makes like the highway crumble and find out that she's able to control what people see in their minds, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Right. So then
Wasn't a fan of that. Yeah.
yeah. So then after
Wasn't
that,
into that.
we jump back into Hawkins, and we see Dustin and the kids all back at school, and they see Maxine, who like, I guess, captures the attention of Dustin and Lucas, who are immediately like fawning over her. And then we also meet Billy, who's Max's older brother, who's like the 80s
A tool.
doucher.
Yeah. That was his name. Yeah.
Smoking cigarettes, the
Yeah.
cool guy with the Mustang. We get to see him and Steve interact in school, and they're kind of trying to be out alpha each other. And I guess we noticed like Mike and Nancy are still like really struggling with the loss of 11 and Barbara, namely because Nancy's had to cover up the death of Barbara, and I guess Mike has to acknowledge that 11 never existed, and they really had a connection. They were supposed to go to the dance together at the end of last season, and she disappears. And we learn that Will's been having hallucinations, and that he's still being taken to the old hospital to be evaluated by the doctors over there. So that's how season 2, episode 1 starts off.
Wait, so that hospital was that the one in the first season too?
Same
facility?
spot. Yeah, same
Oh,
facility.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hawkins lab.
So I liked the episode, but I did not like the intro. I'm not gonna lie. I was not into that for some reason. Like just that opening scene where you see her, like just that there's like another 11 out there somewhere. I mean, obviously she was 11, so that means there were at least 10 others. So I get that there's other people out there with like her, but I kind of like that she was the focal point. I wanted this to be her story. And so right when I saw that, I was kind of worried that they're going to pull away from that. Her power was really cool. I thought that was sick. Like that was a surprise. I thought she, broke the bridge. Like I'm sure everybody else did. So seeing it like in everyone's head, I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't super stoked when I saw like that opening scene. Yeah, but the rest of it was cool. And Billy, man, like made me laugh when I first saw it. Like just smoking cigarettes in that Thunderbird. Like, was it the first episode that you see all the girls like fawning over him at the high school? Like, yeah, it was just he just made me laugh, man.
Yeah, I agree with you about the intro scene. Like when it happened, I was like, I don't think the story is going to play out as effectively as the first season did.
Yeah.
But what really took me out of it was this butthole Billy. Same actor as the Red Power Ranger, apparently in the new Power Rangers movies.
Oh, is that him?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So
and
you saw that,
except with like a mullet that almost looked fake, and just a shit demeanor that I was hoping would get justified, but never was.
Yeah,
And
I was waiting for that
the the whole season for no fucking discernible reason. I mean, they explain it at the end, but it's like not even really a good justification.
So annoying. Yeah. They try to build up that character and that sister's like mystery of their family and everything.
There was no character development.
Yeah,
It was
doesn't
always
really
he
pay
drops her
off.
off at the arcade, she flicks him off while he drives away all loud and shit.
Actually, yeah, they set up 8, and then they set up those two, the brother and sister, like they're going to be, and those storylines are going to be so crucial to the season. And then you only see 8 in one more episode, and then you find out like the brother and sister thing are like, okay, they're step siblings, and like, okay, they kind of hate each other. He hates her because he's angry. But yeah, it wasn't that great.
Yeah, and I'm with you guys there. I was really worried we're gonna get taken away from Hawkins when I saw this new chick, and I was like, I'm not feeling Philadelphia. There's something about Hawkins that feels really nice. It captures that 80s vibe really well, and I felt like they were just taking a stab at, okay, let's try to really expand this universe and get ourselves some more seasons and plant some seed for future seasons, which I'm not a huge fan of.
But I kind of like what you just said, though. I like there's something about like weird things and like magic and powers like in suburban area that's like just inherently more interesting. There's more like gossip between neighborhoods, and there's those relations versus just like her crashing a bridge in the middle of a city that they'll never trace her.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like harder to keep a secret too in like a smaller city. So there's that level of like
intimacy with everyone else. Yeah, it's cool.
No, and the environments are so much more lived in.
Correct.
In shows where they co-locate the majority of the story, and especially in shows that take place in this time period and earlier, since there weren't cell phones. So like even though everything might be taking place in one town, you're still like globally connected. Like in this first season, this town could have like been nuked, like in The Crazies, right? Like completely wiped off the earth. Like that's how high the stakes were.
Yeah.
And so when you start introducing like other random characters and other random places and tangential storylines and stuff, you like dilute the impact of all the things that are happening to all the main characters.
And it's more believable to think that these kids are like biking through suburbia rather than through like a major metropolis.
Yeah,
and
that's
it doesn't work.
Well, having the woods right there helps too, right? Like that's how Will got. Yeah. But I'm glad they didn't pursue those stories as much, or they weren't as integral as it kind of set them up to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So, did you guys notice any of the they mentioned a lot, but the overplot of it's like a Russian agent. Was that supposed to tie into anything that's happening politically right now, or is it just to try to fit into the times?
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, Russia's colluding with Hawkins Lab and the Demogorgon.
Exactly. I will say the
to
biggest
steal the
surprise.
election for Bush.
It was Reagan. Remember, it was like the Reagan.
Reagan Bush. Yeah.
They had it on Bush was a VP, right?
Yeah.
One of the biggest surprises to me is when Samuel came through on screen, and I was surprised to see him in this TV show at all. Bob, Sam. From
yeah.
So
Samwise Gamgee.
Oh, he was great. Yeah.
So him coming completely caught me off guard. It was a great surprise. So that was really fun. And also we see that the Upside Down world is still open, right? There's people that they send down into the lab, and he's burning the vines that are coming off the wall, and you kind of can an idea that it's still a live organism. It can be hurt by fire. So they tease us that at the very beginning of the episode.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but when I would see the Upside Down world in the beginning, I was like, oh, that's not so scary. Like there's no Demogorgon. It's like, okay, it's just like another place.
It's just always dark.
We could store shit there, like if we run out of space, we could like that's like our new, storage unit is this upside. There's no Demogorgon. Okay.
We have an entire planet, guys, on the other side where we can take our shit and store it.
Or maybe we can mine resources from the Upside Down. Like who knows?
Oh, one last thing. One part that was really sad was still seeing Barb's family holding out hope.
Oh yeah,
That was kind of
going a little
really,
crazy too,
yeah.
right?
You know,
Nobody
you
cares
see that
about
they're,
gingers.
Is that the message?
yeah. Because her parents are like selling the house to try to get a private detective, and it's all very sad.
Yeah.
And neither of them are ginger.
Yeah,
Makes it even makes
that,
her
There's a
disappearance
little bit of flaw on that
all the
show.
stranger.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and then they hire that douchebag Brett Gelman, whatever, the guy who always plays some weird cuck.
that guy's hilarious, dude. He, I think he played like the drug tester on like season 1 of Workaholics, and he was such an asshole. So funny.
Cool, yeah, and then the episode ends with Hopper hitting up 11 back at his
Yeah.
cabin, which was so
Yeah.
nice to see.
Right.
Oh yeah, that was cool. Seeing her episode 1, like that was cool because we were kind of talking about what episode she'd come back in.
Yeah, that was well done. You see him walking back to the cabin, stepping over the tripwire, secret knock. You walk in, you half expect it's her. You're not really sure till you see her on
Right.
screen, though, which was
Yeah,
really
exactly.
well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, great episode. I mean, it pulls you right back in, right? And the thing we didn't mention is the music in the show is amazing.
Oh man,
It
Yeah.
really, helps you build that sci-fi 80s vibe by mixing it in both in. It reminded me a lot of Blade Runner too, but
The synth.
yeah, the synth, it's very
Yeah,
well done with the show. So
yeah, and like you said, like the tone feels the same, like the way everything is shot and the way it looks, and the characters all look and feel and sound the same. You know, it's just like they did. Yeah, it felt like such a great continuation.
they use I don't know, they use like a filter on the shots, right? And it gets a bit more like orangey, brighter look.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
like 80s. So I
Yeah.
like that too, and it makes it the colors really pop and are more lively.
But yeah, when you saw that opening credits again after whole waiting after season 1, like yeah, you get a little like jittery or like because it was I agree, felt so good.
All right, on to episode 2, Trick or Treat Freak. So in flashbacks, we see 11. She escapes from the Upside Down and is still hiding out from government agents. We see the kids dress up as the Ghostbusters, which, damn, those were pretty good costumes.
Yeah,
Great.
Hopper is checking out all the rotten pumpkin farms.
Mhm.
Nancy wants to tell Barb's parents. Let's see. Nancy gets shit-faced and actually says some really mean shit to Steve.
Yeah.
And then Jonathan takes her home. And then they go trick-or-treating. And Will has another acid flashback. Yes, I know. Oh, yeah, and Dustin finds the Pollywog.
Right, in the trash can, right?
Yeah.
The first scene was really cool. You can kind of feel the fear that Eleven's going through. It's like she's wandering through the empty hallways. I'm assuming she's evaporated the Demigorg, and now she's stuck in upside down world. And
Yeah,
she's almost like comes through that wall that looks like a huge like birthing scene, almost like she's coming through a canal or something. And the imagery there was really nice.
I felt like right after that too. I liked it was like a parallel to season 1. She was kind of like right where she was in season 1. After that, she like makes it back to the real world, and then she's kind of like in the woods again. You know, just like she was in season 1, except she doesn't run into 3 kids. She's like stuck out there like killing squirrels and stuff.
Well, she does. She does try to go see Mike, right? And then she noticed all the officers are there, and she's essentially like chased away from the house and has to go back.
Also, to say, Will is a great artist. Like some of his, I noticed in this episode, some like his drawings are incredible. You know, his renderings are unbelievable. He's a really good artist. So props to Will.
And Sonny, you mentioned this is probably one of your favorite moments, right? Like the whole Hopper and 11 bonding. You get to see a lot of that at the beginning.
Yeah, this is the
episode.
start of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's essentially his surrogate daughter at this point.
I really like the creature. I don't know why, but I think it looks really cool. It reminds me of like Cloverfield a little bit. Like it's always shrouded, and in this case is like quite amorphous and
You mean the actual
ethereal.
the main bad
The
thing?
monster.
The monster?
Yeah, the main monster. Yeah.
It's really
And-
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is scary. It's like it's haunting.
Yeah.
Because you can't like define it. That's why it's so.
Yeah,
creepy.
it's actually to a certain degree even scarier than the Demogorgon. It's like significantly larger and exactly as you said, it's amorphous. You can't you don't know exactly what it is because it looks like it could be anything.
Yeah.
And they might have learned from season 1 because I was a little let down after the reveal of the actual Demogorgon, what it looks like.
Mhm.
And I think maybe they decided this season it's safer to go with something that's more mysterious, doesn't have to have be confined by one image or one symbol. You know what I mean? It can, like you guys just said, it can be anything, and it's just a symbol of fear for Will, and we kind of understand the power and the magnitude of it through Will's reaction to it, which is
supposed to be like
well.
is it supposed to be a subtle parallel to it
Right.
then too?
I'm sorry?
Is that supposed to be like a subtle parallel to it then too? Just like the same thing that represents fear more than anything else.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, again, this is a good episode, but like, not much happens, right? There's like a lot of episodes in
Just
the
to move the
season
plot
where it just like
along.
moves the plot along. Not much really happens. So
It's a typical episode 2. That's like I think what episode 2 is meant. I have to say, I think Nancy played a really good drunk. Like her drunk was it was so believable, and like even when she was just like standing, I really noticed it when she was like after Steve had bailed on her in the bathroom.
her blank
just
stare.
Yeah, she's like this dead stare into the mirror. She's like wiping down her shirt,
Yeah.
like trying to keep balance. So she's like wiping her shirt down, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
She looked like she was drunk. That actress
She
was
looked
drunk.
Yeah, she looked trashed.
She looked shit. Yeah.
True story. She was trash that whole episode.
Yeah.
I also thought it was pretty funny that all the boys, they all dressed up, and then Mike and Lucas get into it's like, why do I need to be that character just because I'm black?
Oh yeah.
No, that's not why. And I thought it was a lot of fun that no one else dressed up and they didn't get the memo and they just kind of got left behind, which is pretty funny.
That feels like a really common like movie trope too, right? Yeah.
But
And it was a great cliffhanger too, by the way. Like that ending was just like the movement in Dustin's trash can, and then he just opens up the lid and he's just like, "Oh my god,"
Right.
Like that was. I was like, "What the hell's in there? What is in there?" Yeah, it was really cool.
it was done really well, especially they built up the tension very well leading up to that.
Yeah, especially since it was in. I thought the actual idea itself is like one of my least favorite points in the season.
I agree. Well, I think we can get that.
We'll get into
in the next
that.
episode.
Yep.
Sonny, you have any more thoughts on episode 2, or we can move on?
Now let's move on.
All right. So episode 3, the Pollywog. So it starts off by Hopper finding 11, and you kind of see how they kind of set up a place and set up a place where she's going to live for the next year. And then Bob, while he's driving in the car with Will, and Will kind of tells Bob about the fears that he has, and Bob tells him to stand up to his fears and stop running away from him. Nancy convinces Jonathan to help her and tell her Barb the truth, where they had that crazy meeting in the school. And then Hopper asked Dr. Owens to investigate the crazy stuff that's going on with the rotting of the pumpkins and stuff. And then Dustin tries to learn more about the strange creatures that he found in his trash can. That weird little like slug-like thing that he calls a dart. Will describes his hallucinations and finds out that Dark is from the upside down. He tells Mike about it. Then 11 leaves her place to go look for Mike. She's sick of Hopper at this point. Then she actually gets to the school, sees Max, and while what's her name? Max is skateboarding around Mike, and then she gets like super jelly, and then she leaves. And then Joyce finds an image of Will's visions, that storm creature, and then goes back to the video camera that he dropped when he was in the upside down during trick or treating, and she can see for that random split second that image that kind of looks like Will's vision. So she's kind of onto what's going on. Dart escapes, and then Will finds it, which triggers another hallucination of his. And then Will follows Bob's advice and confronts the shadow. and unfortunately, that doesn't go well for Will.
Yeah.
Dude, it was this episode that I was like, I became 100% convinced that Bob was an agent.
Really?
Me too.
Trying to compel Will to like interact, like the same way that Dr. Brenner did to Eleven, right?
Yeah.
And and I thought he was putting on this cuck persona as a way to get close to them, and it turns out he's just a plain old cuck.
Dude. That is harsh, man.
That's so harsh.
That's the same games you're talking about, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I know.
Mr. Frodo. Don't run away from the monster, Mr. Frodo.
But I have to admit though, I totally agree. Like it was at this point too. I was like, oh man, is Sam a bad guy? Like that'd be terrible.
My only
because why not?
thought
That'd be a
was-
good idea. That'd be a good idea.
Yeah. The only, I mean, I didn't think what you guys said, but like, I was like, why is this guy so nice? Like, I don't get it. Why is this dude so freaking nice?
He's a beta.
Yeah.
But I gotta admit, honestly, I didn't really like the idea of like the creature thing. I thought it was kind of cool that it
When
was.
you say creature, do you mean Dart or do you talk about the big baddie?
No, I'm talking about Dart. Sorry.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
I
same.
wasn't a huge fan of like that becoming like part of the story that like Dustin's got like a cute little creature. I mean, I love Dustin's character, but you would think even at this point he would be like, all right, well, I'm not keeping this. This is
Right.
like,
These kids
this is
are
obviously an alien.
these kids
He's
aren't
been
stupid.
aged.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're kids, right? But they're not dumb. They seem to like
They know what's
all
up.
all the steps not to do. Like they play Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of like they know all this stuff. But Dustin just seems so. I mean, he falls for that dumb little thing. Right?
Yeah. But what he does really well in this episode again, which is why I love Dustin, and he did it in season 1 when he's pleading with the teacher to try to figure out how to create one of those sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah.
He convinces the librarian, and he remember he has like 5 books he's trying to get, and then she's like, no, you've already got 5 books. And he is like making his case for like, no, you're halting my growth. I need to have these books.
These are my paddles.
And then as he's running, like, I need my paddles. And he's like running out of the. Dude, that was brilliant. Yeah, I love that. Great Dustin moment.
Agreed.
And also, it's the second time that we've seen the monster revealed through some kind of media.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first season, we saw the monster through a picture that Jonathan took.
Yep.
And then this time it was through the video that
Right.
Will took. And then it's also the second time that Winona Ryder figured everything out. She's just like a crying genius. She's a detective. Like she knows everything. She investigates like crazy. She's in the wrong business. She needs to become like a PI. She is great at her job. She figured everything out.
I get why she's so overbearing, but oh my god, I feel like suffocated watching her as a mom. She's so over the top.
Yeah, and poor Bob or poor Will. I don't know. Like, great advice, Bob. Yeah. Stand up to your fear.
Yeah, stand up to that amorphous creature from another dimension.
Right.
Will.
Do we know what triggered it to finally attack Will? Was it just biting?
He probably stopped running. He stopped running and he stopped like exiting the what's this upside down.
Okay.
Yeah. But I kind of like not knowing. I hope they don't fully explain what's going on. There's an element of like mystery to like how things work and why they work that kind of makes it cool too, you know?
I think at this point in the show, it's too late. Like, I feel like too much has happened for them to like have someone just Morgan Freeman explain the entire universe.
Well, I'd be down for
everything
that.
that's
If Morgan Freeman's doing it, I'd be down. But I need one else now.
Yeah, you're right, Sonny. I'll accept the coincidence of it. You know what I mean? At this point of the story,
Yeah.
It's like too much has happened to really care why Will was quote unquote chosen to be the vessel for this creature. So
No, and I'm sad about that. Like, I really wish this season was more of an exploratory thing instead of just like thrusting us into more, like more intrigue. Like, I wish some of that stuff got polished up, but whatever.
I will say one thing I forgot to mention is all the boys dressed up as Ghostbusters and 11 dressed up as a ghost, which is really cute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
she
I
was
noticed that. That was
cool.
pretty good.
She unfortunately didn't get to meet them up, but
Well, I like that Dustin actually used his costume. Like his costume actually came into play. That was cool.
Yeah,
Like,
that's really cool. Yeah.
And he tried to impress Max with it too, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, not much else happens, right, on this episode?
Yeah.
Y'all want to move on to episode 4?
Yeah.
All right. Episode 4, Will the Wise. So the show picks right back up where it ended with Will like almost in a catatonic state, right? And then he wakes up to see his mom and friends. They take him home, but he starts acting like a weirdo, zombie Will, and he just starts drawing like scribbles on all these pages. Like, I think they talk about him feeling like cold or something, and his mom like draws him up a hot bath, and he just doesn't want any part of it. Joyce, immediately calls Hopper for help, and Hopper recognizes like the drawings that Will's doing, and goes to the pumpkin patch area or whatever without Joyce. So Nancy and Jonathan are then caught by undercover lab agents because they're trying to, tell Barb's mom and dad what really happened to Barbara. So they bring him into the Hawkins lab, where Dr. Owens shows them, the entrance to the upside down world to kind of sell them on the magnitude of what they're really hiding by helping cover this whole thing up. But we find out that Nancy and Jonathan had a master plan to record this as a confession and eventually release it via news. Lucas tries to get closer to Max, but Billy, the douche older brother, warns Lucas to stay away, are we sure he's racist? Like, he's racist, right?
It's never explicitly overly said, but
right.
You'd have to imagine.
So then after that, we jump and find that Dart is released and broken out his cage and eaten Mew Mew, or Muse, the cat, which was disgusting.
Yeah.
And we find out it's basically like a baby version of the Demogorgon because you see its face finally evolved, and it's like a 4-open flapjack face or whatever. And Demidog, yeah. And then that same night, 11 and Hopper have an argument. They get into a big fight. He leaves. 11 finds out all the paperwork about her biological mother and tries to touch base with her using her powers. And then we also at the same time see Hopper like digging a hole in one of the tainted pumpkin fields, and he goes down there, and that's where the episode ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
good episode, I thought. That was a good episode.
Me too.
Yeah, one of the stronger episodes of the season.
Agreed. It definitely felt like they finally hit the chord of the season plot line. Like, things really moved fast in this episode. Like, and you even had like pretty good climactic emotional moments, like between Hop and 11.
Yes.
We learned that what Polywog is the Demogorgon, right? Like, shit ramped up real quick this episode.
Right. Yeah, I think you guys were saying earlier, those scenes between Hopper and 11, like, man, they're so good. They're really, the chemistry is really good. And yeah, I don't know, man. It just seems so touching. They feel so heavy. Even like the nice scenes, the angry scenes, like everything feels so heavy.
Yeah,
like there's something about that relationship that's just awesome.
I think it just feels real.
Yeah,
it feels like a real argument between like, well, first of all, two people trying to get to know each other better, and then the whole like parent-daughter dynamic also works really well with those two because as much
her
as
dad was abusive, right? Her dad was abusive, and his son or his daughter died, so it's like they fit each other.
As much as he wants her to be free, he's essentially doing exactly what Dr. Brennan did to 11, just imprisoning her in another fashion, and it's it's the same cycle repeating over again. But
that's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. Yeah. But that's totally true.
I just wanted to bring up Dr. Owens. Did you guys think this guy had some ill intentions the whole time?
Totally.
Yeah. I couldn't trust him.
Yeah.
Ends up he's a great guy.
Trust Paul Reiser.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was just like using what were they what were the last name? Bryce? Anyways, they were just using Will and his family just to get more buyers, right? Buyers. Just using their family just to like get more information and uncover more about the Upside Down. I didn't like them at all.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that same government organization is so much less sinister now. right?
Yeah, it is weird, and I guess it all happened in that discussion in the car at the end of season 1 with Hopper.
Yeah. Or maybe
Yeah,
just Dr. Brennan was just calling all the shots and he just kind of, was.
I think that's what it is. Like, I
Yeah.
think the people that run that shit make it the way it is.
Okay. Yeah. And Dr. Owens seems to be a lot more like level-headed. Actually wants to
Understand.
understand what's
Thank you.
happening, which is interesting.
Oh, also, one scene I guess we blew over was the scene with the basketball scene with Billy and Steve. That
Yeah.
scene, like,
Straight
it's
out of
pretty-
Top Gun.
yeah, seriously, man, seriously. They like ripped it right out of an '80s movie. That was, I watched it. It was kind of cringeworthy, but in that sense, I kind of liked it. I was like, this is a little weird, but weirdly cool.
What was those interactions? I guess it paid off, but even with the scene where we finally see Billy and Steve fight, like none of all the stuff that led up to that fight really did like added nothing else to their relationship or that story
Right.
to me.
Well,
And
yeah,
just saying
I thought he was gonna have, like we were saying, a good, like, another Steve redemption arc, because he knocks over Steve,
right.
Mhm.
and then he like goes over, he's like, plant your feet, and he like gives him advice, like a weird passive aggressive way to be like nice to somebody. So I thought, all right, when push comes to shove to make the good or bad decision, he's gonna make a good decision.
Right.
But
No,
No.
he's just a cunt.
yeah.
I thought it was also very nice and intelligent how Nancy and Jonathan just completely taped that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which was
that
really
was smooth.
smart on both of their point. Like, actually, let's do something, and they actually did it. You know what I mean?
It's pretty ballsy
Yeah,
that they wanted to like meet with somebody having just visited that government building, and then call a family of a daughter whose death that government is trying to cover up, and think that they can meet at a place and not get, bugged or something. That was kind of
Right.
Right.
That was kind of a dumb move on their part. But one
But it
question
turns
I
out
had,
it was a smart move.
well, yeah, and it turns
Very
out they weren't
smart.
as like evil as we assumed, and like they were in season 1. But
No, I mean, like, they intentionally got caught.
Yeah, it was on
oh, right,
purpose.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
Why could Elle's mom see the Upside Down?
I don't think
yeah.
they could.
You sure? Because like Elle went to go visit her, right? She saw a picture of her, and then she put the TV on static, and then she sees her in that blackness with
But
that
that's not
still
the Upside
water.
Down.
That's a different.
Then what is that?
Yeah, that's the thing that they don't explain.
Oh, okay.
Season 1 or 2. Yeah.
It's some weird like plane where she
Psychic
can
plane.
transport. Like, it's some sort. In my mind, I keep thinking some sort of like radio wave that she's able to like walk through or find people using like radio transmission. But it's a question that's not really answered, and I don't think they will ever answer. It's just supposed to be a way that she's able to visualize and see other people that she's thinking about.
Yeah, I agree.
So
But like her mom seemed the most like lucid.
think of like
You like looked right at
Dr.
her.
Xavier and how he has his cerebro. I think it's the same concept.
Okay.
It
So
helps
it's
her-
Cerebro. It's
yeah.
Cerebro.
Yeah, it's like cerebro essentially. Helps
Yeah.
to get into other people's minds and find them based on just a picture.
Which is a cool power. That's a really cool power.
It's a very cool power, man. Yeah, there's nothing much else to really dig on that episode, right? Again,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
moving forward, and like the plot's building up to the climax. So
The only thing I took away from that, or like I haven't like my notes, is I just at this point I was thinking, what am I supposed to make of the two new characters, Max and Billy? And at this point, like, why should I care? And will they ever be relevant to the story? Like, I don't know, for some reason this episode, especially with all that going on with Billy and like fighting Steve and stuff, I thought there's got to be some relevancy. But yeah, that was just my thoughts going out of that.
there's almost no plot relevance to them other than just being a female character for Dustin and Lucas to interact with and kind of show them maturing a little bit. There's no other real plot point for either of them because they don't get utilized in a way in terms
You think
of
they just needed a girl dynamic, and that was their way of adding it, since Elle wasn't going to be part of their crew this year.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it worked, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
agree.
liked it. I mean, I wasn't against it. I just was wondering, like, at this point, am I supposed to? Are we supposed to read into anything other than they're just new characters to the story?
Right.
I didn't like how Mike was such an asshole to her.
Yeah.
For what it seemed to be like no reason. He just didn't want another chick in the crew.
Pretty much.
Well, it's kind of like last season, right? Lucas didn't want 11.
Yep.
Yeah, but
And
11
Mike
was weird. Max, she's just a ginger. I think that's
she's
what
kind
the
of
real
a
story
bully
is.
too, you know.
Yeah, you know, this is 4 episodes in, and we maybe have seen like 5 or 10 minutes of Mike. Hasn't been highlighted that much yet in this season at all.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting choice. It seems like Dustin has taken all the screen time.
Well, I think it's because Mike is like the only reason he's interesting. 2 reasons: he's got a hot sister, and and
I know, they use that a lot in this show,
right? And then he was like the somewhat romantic interest with 11. But other than that, he's just quite a bland character.
Yeah.
I actually like the actor's character in it a lot more than I like him in the show.
So good in that. It's kind of like, hey, we'll stick you here with Will, and you'll see Mike when you see Will, because he just essentially gets thrown to the background, has no purpose in this.
Because they're besties.
Yeah.
All right. So chapter 5, Dig Dug. Hopper is in the tunnels and he passes out. Will can visualize where he is but can't point it out on a map. So they get Bob to help, and Bob somehow, the savant that he is,
Bob the Brain,
is able to parse the map that Will has been furiously drawing and locate Hopper. Nancy and Jonathan go visit Brett Gelman, the conspiracy theorist who's fleecing people for their money, including Barbara's parents. And then he gets them to fuck by calling them out for not having fucked yet.
He plays such hard mind games. Yeah.
And then they devise of a way of getting the story more palatable by the public by just saying that Barb died from toxins from the lab. Lucas confides in Max about the events of the last year, to which she gets pissed off, thinking that he's trolling her. And he does actually a really good job of like being like, no, be quiet, stop saying that name, like I'm not joking, right? And you would think that at least if someone told you a story and was that scared about you saying something, you would at least like all right, if it makes you feel better, right? But she didn't seem to give no shits.
Or
whatsoever.
they're going like all in on this prank, and they just
right?
taking it too
Exactly. If it was me, I would have been like, all right, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
All right, I'm out. I'm done with this. I won't tell anybody, but fuck you too, okay? Let's see. And then 11 finds her mom, is able to communicate with her, and learns that her mom was, at a part of the lab, which we already knew, gave birth to 11, which we already kind of knew, but didn't have any proof. And then when she tried to get her baby back, they captured her and gave her electroshock therapy, which was horrifying to watch. Like, on a side note, that's like one of my greatest fears is people saying like, "No, Sonny, you're crazy," and like apprehending me and then
tying you down,
drugging me up, or giving me, electroshock, because I'm just the entire time like, no, I'm not crazy, and they're like, well, that's exactly what a crazy person would say. And then that's the end of my life, right?
You could watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
No, I've seen it. It also terrifies me. And then 11 learns that the Indian girl is another person that was trained like her, and then they all finally find Hopper, and they themselves get rescued by people from the Hawkins lab, who proceed to start burning the tunnels in the fire. And Will goes into like the scariest seizure I've ever seen on film.
It's like Hodor levels.
Yeah.
It was way scarier than Hodor.
Yeah.
Do you think it was scary? Really?
Oh, I was terrified. It didn't even look like his face. It looked like a rubber doll that they stuck a vibrator in and then just turned it on max. It was fucking crazy. This is a good episode.
For me, I think it's a mixed bag for me. There's a lot of the parts that I like in this episode I really liked, and there's some parts that I didn't like as much. So I
Well, what didn't you like?
really didn't like the way they shot the flashback. I
Who's
it,
flashback?
sorry, Jane or Terry.
Oh,
Billy's
yeah.
mom. I didn't
Yeah.
like the way that was told at all. Like it just the little fuzzy or hazy camera to really tell you.
Yeah.
It's just not a. You can tell us as a flashback. You don't have to use that same filter to show us that it's a
Yeah.
flashback. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It was like too like we've seen that style of
Yeah.
delivering a flashback before, and it's not really artistic at this point, right? It's kind
At
of
all.
derivative.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with
Right.
that.
I didn't like that at all. I mean, what happened to his mother just sucks. Like you said,
Yeah.
that's the scariest thing that could ever happen. Baby getting stolen from you, and then
Mhm.
basically you see Dr. Brennan, who's such a fucking bad guy. He was so evil, dude.
Yeah.
And the thing I liked about this a lot was Nancy, Jonathan, and the reporter. Those scenes were so funny. The guy
Yeah.
was such a goof, super paranoid. He's like, look, he's got all this camera set up,
Yeah.
state of the art security in his house or whatever, and just like mess with these high school kids so hard.
He got adult as shit on
Yes,
him, you know what I
yes,
mean?
yes.
Like drop some knowledge, like way too. I love that. Those scenes with them together were just priceless, and even into the next episode, which we'll get into. I love that dude.
Yeah.
He is amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't really like that they told Max about everything. I didn't really like how it came out either. Like I get why it was that way, and I get why it had to be Lucas to tell her because Lucas liked her, and they kind of had to use that as like, okay, well, Will didn't like her. It had to be like a device to like find some rift between the boys that she knows now. But I don't know. I wasn't really a big fan of having someone else come in, especially because, like I was saying at the end of the last episode, I was like, who the hell is this chick? And what's her brother? And like, what's their deal?
Right.
So just like not knowing them or their intentions, like it was uneasy to me that she knew, and it felt like now she knew, and that's going to be a big problem. Which fortunately didn't really happen, but I thought this is going to be a problem. She's going to rat. Someone's going to. Her brother is going to push her, and then she's going to have to tell her brother, and her brother's going to spill the beans, and like shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And I thought that was maybe their reason for being in the season, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that, honestly.
See, then that worked for you. It helped, in a sense, build some tension on your end. I didn't get any of that, actually. Maybe I just wasn't thinking on that wavelength, but that could have been a good method to actually build some sort of tension because
Yeah,
in your mind, Billy is always a guy that could have came in and just ruined everything for the kids, right?
yeah. This was
Yep.
his chance.
So that's
Know?
good.
He was bullying his sister.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm glad it didn't happen that way. I mean, I didn't want that, but that's what I thought. And you're right. It was a little like it made me uneasy.
Yeah. One part that I did love in this episode was how they put up all those pictures up in the house.
Yeah,
They did something similar in season 1, which was done a lot better with the lights and
Yeah, I agree.
the way the mom was using the lights to communicate with Will. But this again made the buyer's house into like an art piece. Although it's not as nice as season 1, it's still really cool because like it not only helps the viewers visualize what's happening, but also helps the characters like get to the next piece of the puzzle, right? So it's a
that was
really
like
good.
that was like base, like mission
Right.
control. Like they go
Right.
there to get the next mission. They're on.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that too. I thought it was a little weird that like Bob the Brain could just come in and be like, "Oh my God, what's the map of the city?" It's like a 3-dimensional thing that's on 3 different like walls, floors, ceilings, and in multiple rooms. But he's somehow smart enough to figure out that
Right.
oh, this is Hawkins. Like I thought that was a little bit of a stretch, but I don't know. I didn't
I know
mind
the way, Mr. Frodo.
this.
Take you there.
But did you guys also notice there was like at this point like a brain motif in the show in the season?
Can you
If you guys
elaborate?
remember, yeah. So he in this episode he was like, yeah, Bob. They call me Bob the Brain. I like to do puzzles. I'm a nerd. So that was him, right? So he's Bob the Brain. In the first episode, when they're in science class, when we get introduced to like Max, formerly as Max, they're looking at a brain, and the teacher's explaining the brain.
Okay.
I thought like the tunnels I thought were gonna kind of be the idea of like like a neural network in a brain. It's just like this one big thing, which kind of is the case because it kind of had like this shared
It
like
is.
when they were
It's
getting
like a hive
attacked at
mind,
the
right?
end. Yeah, it was a hive mentality, so it was kind of like this collective brain, collective hive,
Mhm.
and And then the storm, the shadow monster, like got into he got into Will's brain, so almost like an actual brain got like penetrated by this thing. So I don't know. It just felt like there was a lot of like brain motifs at this point.
That's a very good catch. That's really good writing on their part to help, keep those motifs through the episode.
Yeah.
Kind of foreshadowing exactly what they're fighting against, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That teacher is really underrated. I wish I had a teacher like him. And
he was great, man. Yeah, seriously. You see him, like, I wish he was my teacher.
Yeah, really awesome guy.
And just another big ups to that kid who plays Will. My God, that kid is such a good. Like, we didn't get to see that as much in season 1.
Yeah.
And they gave him, because that was my only thing. All the kids were great actors, except maybe Will, because you didn't see as much of Will. And man, he killed it. He killed it this season. He was so good, that little kid. He's the best.
Yeah, that scene with him and Winona, and he's explaining like everything that's going on with him, and he's just like breaking down. Like, yeah, that was stellar acting.
Yeah, incredible. And there's a couple more scenes coming up that I'll mention, but man, he just had that stare, that look, that emptiness that like built on throughout the season.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, some of that is like a little bit of makeup and costuming and stuff, but a lot of that is like he brought that to life.
Agreed.
All right, so episode 6, The Spy. So after Will has that freak out, he gets rushed to the lab, and he realizes that he has memory loss. So the Dr. Owens kind of speculates that there's like a virus in Will, like that shadow monster is kind of like a virus that's now infecting his brain. And they also run some tests, remember? And they actually like light some of those tunnels on fire, and it causes Will a lot of pain. So they're realizing that they're kind of connected.
Yep.
And then back to Terry, Nancy, and Jonathan when they're at that guy's house, and he keeps like pressuring them to get together, and then they kind of express their feelings and end up boning that night. And then after they leave that sketchy place and go back to their house, the buyer's house, and they find all of Will's drawings all over the place and nobody home. And then Dustin contacts Lucas and tells him about Dart taking off. So he actually was having trouble contacting all the boys. So and then he runs into Steve. So they kind of meet up with Steve, and they go to find Dart. And that's where Lucas contacts him. So Lucas, Max, Dustin, and Steve all like set up this like base to try to capture Dart. And that's kind of where Max tells Lucas about her and Billy, and you kind of hear the backstory about the two of them, and they're children of divorce and their step siblings. And so as that's happening, they find Dart, but they realize that Dart is actually not just one; he's actually a huge pack of these demi-dogs, as they're calling them. And then as they're trapped in this bus, as they're being attacked by the demi-dogs, they all suddenly run away. Where we find out that they're running back to the lab, where Will discovers that there's like a place in this map that he has in his brain that the monster's trying to avoid. So Owen sends a team of soldiers to go investigate that area, and they realize that it's a trap, and they just get attacked by all these monsters. And then they find out at the end, or Will admits at the end, that the monster made him do it.
Well,
sure. The monster made him
Mike
do it.
Figures it out, right? The biggest impact Mike has had this season. He's like,
oh yeah.
It's a spy. The spy found out. Yeah, I know. So.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you guys think?
That was a good episode. Yeah, I mean, it explains a lot, right? We find out the connection that Will actually has with the monster, which is kind of a big key here. And the biggest highlight easily goes to Steve and Dustin. The Steeled episode. Such a fun interaction between those two. He's like the older brother to Dustin, teaching him how to like be confident with girls, how to do his hair, and etc.
Yeah, use the Farrah Fawcett hair products.
Right. And you know what I was gonna say? Like, as I was watching the episode, like I didn't buy that. I didn't get it, or I didn't like really buy that this disease like affects Will in the way it does. Like, again, we talked about this, but like, why did it choose Will? Like, I never got that part, and that kind of took me out of the episode, and maybe that's just my personal issue or something with the show writing, but I I just didn't get that, and I didn't understand where all these other demigorgons came from. Because there's only one. How did they multiply into like 30 or 40?
Exactly.
So that came out of nowhere.
I mean, maybe there's still like portals ways in and out of the Upside Down where these things
actually,
are. Because didn't Will hear them when he got stuck in the Upside Down when they were trick or treating? Yeah. Didn't Will hear all the growling and stuff? Didn't he hear Dart and the other demidogs?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the first season they talk about how more people went missing than just Will and some others. So I suspect that the Demogorgon mouth fucked all of them, and that's where more Polywogs and Demogorgons came from.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, maybe some came out of Barb. Maybe some of Barb's offspring. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely probably fed off Barb and. Yeah, okay. That's something I just missed. Then I'm glad you clarified that, Sonny. I'm sure a lot of listeners might have missed that as well.
I loved the Nancy and Jonathan bedtime scene.
Why? What'd you like the most?
I love.
It's about time.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's not just that. I feel bad for Steve. I'm rooting for Nancy and Steve, but I don't know. I like the way it was set up, like the jazz music in the background, and like the stairs. Like it felt like an older movie. Like it felt like they were like throwing back to, I don't know, like maybe romantic scenes of like a 60s or 70s movie. Yeah. It didn't feel. It had its own tone. I felt like that was its own little piece within the episode.
Yep.
I love that, and plus, like that guy is so funny. Like that, I just love how he just like it's so in your face. Like they just don't know how to handle this guy. He's like too real.
I know, dude. That guy, he's a great character actor. He does those kind of roles a lot. And it cracks me up.
Yeah. I also thought the reverse trap was brilliant too. I did not see that really coming.
Yeah.
They allude to it. Like they allude to him, the spy, and it's called The Spy, and they allude to in earlier episodes about. Even remember, Will even says it. He's the one who's like, maybe he's using me. Like maybe I can't see him. He's using me to see you. Mm-hmm. And so and even knowing that in the back of your head, it's like I fell for it. I thought, I was like, oh my god, it is a trap.
You schmuck.
You got me.
I mean, because when the demidogs were fleeing at the car, when they were in the bus, and the demidogs just leave, I thought they were getting I thought Elle came. This was Elle's moment. She was going to come in, and she's just like killing all of them.
So did you guys like that scene in the junkyard with the kids and Steve?
Yeah. Steve's got some balls on him, man.
Dude, badass.
So like he's a
badass.
Yeah.
He is a badass.
Which is really impressive, man. I don't understand this. That scene too was really nice because you see the demidog or whatever they called it in the fog, and then all these other motherfuckers are like creeping up behind Steve, ready to take him out, which is done really, really well.
Yeah. I agree.
The kids are all freaking out. I hate it when the monsters are 2 seconds away from devouring everyone and then something calls them away. Give me a better reason other than just coincidentally some other event happens and saves them, right? Yeah. I don't know. I just hate that in TV shows and movies. It's just like, oh, convenient. Live to fight another day.
Yeah, I was really hoping that at that moment 11 would show up.
Yeah,
and fuck all of them up.
Right.
Yeah. I did really think it was a cool addition that Dustin was like, "Hey, you got that bat? You got that bat with the nails?" And like, Steve still got it. I love that they like pulled a prop from the last season. That's like his. If this was a video game, Steve's character weapon would be a bat with nails.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was really great. Anything else on this episode? Nothing much else, right?
Yeah.
Y'all want to move on to episode 7?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right, guys. Episode 7, The Lost Sister. So in this episode, 11 somehow, she steals money from her aunt, I guess, and gets on a bus to Chicago to find her sister, or the other girl that was in that room with her in the lab. She tracks her down using her powers. The Indian girl, her name's Kali, and she finds her in Pittsburgh or whatever. They reconnect, kind of talk to each other about their powers, which is kind of a touching moment. It's kind of very X-Men vibes. I don't know if you guys got that, but it felt
definitely.
like, two like mutants struggling to fit into society. But essentially, Kali helps her like harness and improve her powers, like channel her anger, kind of like Magneto. See, again, there's a lot of X-Men parallels here.
Yep.
And then they find out that they've been like tracking down these people who are have done people wrong. Essentially, they're like vigilantes, and they want to attack Ray, who's a lab technician who did the shock therapy on Eleven's mom. So they hunt the guy down, show up at his house with some creepy ass masks, which I thought were really cool, and basically on the verge of killing the technician, and 11 saves his life because she realizes he's got 2 kids, 2 girls, and he can't do it. And then at that moment, 11 sees Mike in danger back in Hawkins, and decides to leave the gang in Pittsburgh and head back home.
How did she see that? How did she know?
So, that's a good question. I forgot. She sensed it or something. Like she was in that little black world again, and she saw Mike yelling. I think she might have channeled it or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was my my least favorite episode of the season. Like you said, Akash, it honestly it felt like X-Men to me. This was like an X-Men episode or homage to it. Like 8 felt like a Jubilee type character. Mm-hmm. Which I guess was like, was popular in the 80s, I guess, or the comic books really got big. So, maybe they're just trying to like pay homage to the different like genres of the 80s. And maybe this is like their way of doing it. I mean, I wasn't so into it. I mean, it seemed like how much older was 8 versus 11? There's a lot of questions that I had that distracted me from the story because it was just like ham-fisted in. If you're going to like give me this character that went through the same shit that 11 did, give me a little bit more than what we got. I mean, it just seemed like, you're right though, it seemed like a Magneto type thing, or she was like trying to corrupt 11 to do her bidding, and she was like training her and like move that, do that, the scene where she's like, move the train over here. Dude, that was just like Professor X telling Magneto to shift.
The reason I say Magneto is like, you see in the X-Men movies, like Magneto's kind of a mentor, but his advice comes with a caveat, right? It's kind of channeling your anger and rage to use for his own devices and endgame. And I couldn't tell if Kali was manipulating 11 to help her like channel her energy and powers into something more malicious, or if she's genuinely helping her. And I couldn't understand what tone the show was trying to set up with Kali, because
it just looked like she was like young and misguided and didn't have the support that 11 has and all her friends back in Hawkins. And so this is kind of like what happens when you have this like power and you're left to your own devices. And I think she felt like she needed to free 11 because 11 was like a little too homeschool. So she kind of had to like, toughen her up a little bit, dress her all punk, and like get her to get in touch with like her deeper, darker emotions, where people in Hawkins don't really do that. They provide kind of like a loving, supportive lifestyle, which is supposed to help her. But this girl, 8, thinks that, no, you need to be tough and hard. We're weirdos. They'll never accept us. And we just need to get ours. And it was weird. And there was like that Luke Skywalker moment at the end where it's like, kill him, kill him. It's like, kill Vader, and it was like a Emperor Luke Skywalker narrative.
I have that in my notes. It's like, I specifically wrote down, it's like Palpatine and Anakin. Like, just like treating and telling him to be evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It also reminded me of Batman Begins. Like when Ra's al Ghul tells Batman to kill that guy, right? And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. Yeah.
Like you were saying, Jason, when I first watched the episode, I was like, why the fuck are we in Pittsburgh? Why do we need this? And then after the episode, I started thinking, I was like, maybe it's a good change of pace to get us out of Hawkins, because maybe, I don't know, if you're in the same setting the whole time, it can be a little claustrophobic. But overall, I didn't like the setting or like the purpose of this episode, other than maybe to set up Kali as a future villain for 11.
That's all I think of this as. Is like, when I heard that there was gonna be 4 seasons, then I thought, all right, then that's what this was for. It was to establish some kind of like groundwork that if and when this show eventually was out of Hawkins, like 11 has experience, like she knows what's up. Like if they need to get shit done, like she's kind of walked in the dark side and she's kind of come back. So like this is just purely like a seed to plant and the overall development of this character. But I didn't know. I wasn't too entertained by it.
Sunny, thoughts?
It's like it's necessary for the show since they introduced that character, but I wasn't particularly that all that interested or involved.
It wasn't worthy of the opening scene of this season, in my opinion. Yeah. This wasn't like a worthy payoff for what the hell the seed that they planted in the opening scene. This was like not my payoff for it.
For like 6 episodes.
And it didn't last long enough either. You know, like I think they could have made it a lot richer, and a lot more like emotional, and they could have invested more. But if you're gonna rush, like you're gonna introduce that as the very first scene of the show, as if that's like something defining, and then wrap it up in a bow all in one episode. It didn't make much sense to me.
Or at least hint at a relationship that these two might have had. Like we don't know anything. Like it's just like we're supposed to just assume that these girls are buddies.
Or might have a room, right?
Yeah, they showed that room, and they look the same age when they're little kids in that room. And then now, Kali's is like old. She seems a lot older, even though she's shorter than 11.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they didn't do anything to establish this or any type of payout. Yeah, this is my least favorite.
The characters in that group were pretty derivative, not really original.
Yeah, I also didn't care for any of these side characters, maybe except for the big black guy because he was nice. Yeah. That's about it.
And the scariest part about that group was those masks, man. When they wore those masks to go to attack that lab technician Ray, dude, the mask that Levin was wearing was super creepy. The little baby face mask.
Yeah.
Those are really good touches.
Okay, Chapter 8, The Mind Flayer. So, the pack of Demodorga dogs.
Let's call them Demo Dogs. They sound cool.
Demo Dogs.
Okay. They overrun the lab and they kill a bunch of people. Mike convinces Joyce to sedate Will, so that the shadow monster can't like use him as a planter. Did you get that Lord of the Rings reference?
Yes.
They're all trapped in the lab security room, and then Bob volunteers to go be a coder and fix a problem, and he does it.
But you know basic, Sonny. You know some basic.
No, basic is for scrubs like Bob. Bob would know basic. So he basic ass Bob.
Basic Bob.
Narrowly escapes the Demogorgon dogs, but then decides to have like a very soulful eye contact moment with Joyce, and then gets pounded in the ass by the rest of the Demo Dogs. Which again, like it would have been great if he was a spy, and that was like his redeeming moment to save all of them when he realized he was wrong. But nope, he was just a cuck.
A super nice guy
the whole time. Yeah, just a super nice guy who finished last.
Yeah.
And by finishing last, I mean he died first of all the important people. Yeah. Then they all take everybody back to the house, Joyce's house, I think. And then they somehow come to the hypothesis that if they kill the monster, if they kill the queen, then they'll kill its influence on the rest of the hive. So they tie Will up in the tool shed and redecorated it so he wouldn't recognize it. And then as they are slowly confronting Will, trying to remind him of Will's actual life, since he's been slowly forgetting who Will is, Will is able to type in Morse code, close the gate. And then the phone rings. The monster knows exactly where they are, and they barricade themselves inside the house, waiting for the Demogorgon dogs to show up. So it was a good penultimate episode.
Yep.
Not like the best, but it was pretty good.
First of all, great episode name, because they help you like understand the powers of what this creature is by relating it to Dungeons and Dragons, right? They lift the characters directly from that board game or whatever to kind of give us a frame of reference of what we're dealing with here. And the other part that really stuck out to me on this episode is you finally get to see interaction between Billy and his dad.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
He calls him the F word, and I was conflicted. Like, his dad was an asshole for damn sure, but like Billy's been an asshole this whole time, so like I wasn't sure if I was
Yeah. He seemed like an asshole, before his parents split up.
Yeah.
Just became more of an asshole afterwards.
like I'm not sure if he deserved it because he's been such an asshole to Max, and she didn't ask for any of her parents. She didn't make that decision for them to leave California. She had no power or control over that, and like it was weirdly satisfying to see Billy get it, what he deserves, but at the same time it was tough watching that part too.
Yeah, that was a rough scene. They did that pretty, and you feel bad for him. Like that's a good actor. I'll give him that. Like you feel bad for him in that scene. Right. But you're right, Akash. It's like, but I don't like this guy. So like, am I rooting for the dad here?
Yeah.
What's going on? I like this episode in that it was like a journey. It was its own thing. Like the beginning and the end of this was very different. Like a lot happened, and it was cool. Like I like the idea of taking Will to a shed and redecorating it, and him coming out. And I like that there was that Will still inside him, and getting back to that actor being just a great actor. Like the scene where they're trying to like reach out and trying to reach into Will and tell him stories about his childhood and stuff, and that dead stare he gives every single one of them. It was really good. It was like bone chilling, like watching him. And then at the end of that, and all three of them, by the way, give like a great performance and telling this like heartfelt story about Will. And then at the end of it, just for him to be like, let me go. Like it's still not him. They're still not talking to Will. Like that, I thought that was great. Yeah. One thing I didn't like about this episode was Bob. And that's because like what really Bob, like it's the stereotype for just the nerdy guy to just know everything about computers. And like, he just knows how to like assess the security system of a government building. And he can hack right into that and change stuff up because he's the nerdy guy. And this is the 80s and nobody knows computers. And that was it.
To his credit, maybe if you worked at Radio Shack back in the day, like maybe you were significantly more qualified and more likely to know how to code. But that's still a stretch.
Well, and I don't know about you guys. I got the feeling that right at the beginning, I was like, Bob's going to die.
I totally did. I mean,
when
he left the gun in the room, I was like,
yep, Bob's dead.
Bob's dead. I thought the doctor was trying to fuck over Bob. Like, when he was leading him through the hospital, I thought he was leading to the demo dogs. And I was like, oh, it's going to happen. I was like, wrong again. This doctor's really nice. He's a great guy. Solid stand-up dude.
But I mean, but I don't know, even before, like I had like, it's like the first thing in my notes for this episode is like, is Bob going to die? ? That's it. Like Bob's dead. And how they set it up, it's like, how he forgets his gun. How the fuck do you forget your gun? Like, I get that you're in like an intense situation, but it's intense because there's danger, and you should remember there's a fucking gun. You have a gun to protect you from that danger. It seems like crazy that you'd forget it. And then them standing there, like him just standing there for like 2.5 hours staring at Joyce, like just figuring out what's happening. It's like, I did
it, Mr. Frodo.
Like, dude.
I have two quick points here. One thing I noticed, like we already talked about this, but I definitely noticed it again. Like 100%, none of the episodes feature Mike at all. He's been so non-consequential in this season. Character zero, like nothing. And I really like how this show is, it's so smart with the things, especially with the scene where they're communicating with Will through Morse code. Like I don't know any other show that would do something like that. Like these kids are like really smart, and they use like smart and ingenious ways to like communicate and move the plot along, especially
the practical plot, too.
Right.
The practical way,
And I like that the show really kind of idolizes intelligence and like curiosity, learning, and being like a well-rounded kid, I guess. I mean, that's really, it's like kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? It's like a shout out to nerd culture, right? Like how it's cool and how it can actually help in situations like this, I guess. But
just in case you ever get possessed by a demon from the upside down.
Right.
Those D&D skills will come in handy. Yeah.
But yeah, Sonny, like you also mentioned, like super shout outs to the exorcism when Will was tied up to the chair.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of, I guess, imagery and scenery that looked exactly like it's from The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
the funniest part that cracks me up every single time is when I see Lucas with that goddamn slingshot. Like, like that thing's gonna do anything, right? And it's
That's his
just
character
so-
weapon in the video game.
Yeah.
His little slingshot.
But yeah, it was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it kind of has a cool ending that segues into episode 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, episode 9, the season finale, The Gate. So after that ending in episode 8, we realized that all the commotion going on, all the demi-dogs that were trying to attack the house was 11. She killed all of them outside the Briar's house and makes that really dramatic entrance into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's finally that reunion scene with her and Mike that we've all been waiting for all season. And it's there that they come up with a plan to close the gate to the Upside Down. Hopper and 11 then go to the lab to close the portal, while Jonathan, Nancy, and Joyce try to exercise Will by overheating him. They set up all those heaters to try to heat his body up.
Yep.
Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Max then decide that they're going to try to get into the tunnels to lure the pack away from the lab. And Steve initially doesn't want to do it, but Billy ends up showing up at the house because he's been told by his dad to find Max. So he arrives at the house, and then him and Steve like duke it out. And Steve gets his ass kicked, and Max saves him by like sedating him. Like she shoots him in the neck with that sedative stuff that they're knocking Will out with. Mm-hmm. And then Steve agrees to help to go lure the pack away. The kids then enter the tunnel and enact their plan, but then they see Dart. And Dustin calms Dart down so that the whole group is able to somehow slip past Dart and get out of the tunnels. 11 does some crazy telekinetic stuff to close the portal. She starts floating and our noses are bleeding. And that's kind of how the portal gets closed. And the season ends like we see it seen a month later, where the lab has now been shut down. Barb has now been given a funeral. Dr. Owens forges a birth certificate for 11 and gives it to Hopper. Mm-hmm. And then the students attend that dance. And as we're panning away from the dance, we see that in the Upside Down, that giant shadow monster's still alive, and he starts walking towards the school.
Yeah, and that ending fucking pissed me off because it seemed like they're in exactly the same position that they were in at the beginning of the season.
Except the portal's it's closed, right?
Gate's closed, yeah.
Yeah, but like, what difference does it make if, right? Because it's not like he ever got through the portal, and which is weird because it seems like if that portal was open the whole time, that the shadow monster could have tried getting through at any point in the past, and he's looming over Hawkins, at the Upside Down version of Hawkins, at the beginning and at the same at the end. So either like I missed something or like this season was virtually irrelevant.
I have no idea either. Yeah.
Well, maybe they're building. I think maybe next season is going to be discovering, how do you create one of these portals? I bet you something's going to happen with 11 and she's going to accidentally like create a way for evil to come back into Hawkins or something like that. I think they're trying to explore more into the science in between the realms next season.
Well, that would be great.
That make you happy, Sonny?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, so what was your overall thought though on the finale?
I think, like as Sonny said, the ending kind of puts a little damper on the whole episode. But I mean, it's a good episode. I mean, there were some good funny parts. I think I misthought when Billy shows up, but Billy does show up at Mike's house in this episode, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he's looking for Max. Yeah, no, he shows up in this episode. He's looking for Max.
Which is really funny because Billy looks exactly like the dude that's on the cover of the novel that Mike's mom is reading. And she gets all hot and bothered when they show up.
With her husband sleeping in the living room.
Exactly.
A little scandalous.
I don't know, man. Like, one of my first notes for this episode is these kids are so petty with their drama bullshit. It's just like, I don't know. I thought it was a good ending. I mean, I really like the imagery of Levin closing the portal, she looked like Phoenix from X-Men, just like shutting down that portal, which is really nice. But yeah, I mean, it almost seemed a little too neat, tied up. I felt like it was a bigger threat and would be putting up more of a fight. But I don't know. I thought it was okay. I think that the ending of the season just makes this an overall okay experience compared to season 1.
Yeah, so. Agreed.
Yeah, I think if season 1 or if the finale last season wasn't so like strong, I would think of this one as a better finale. But I think just because like last year's finale set such a high bar, I mean, I liked it. I kind of agree with you, Akash. I liked it, but I don't know. It wasn't the episode I was waiting for.
Right. And I'm not sure what else they could have delivered to us, but it just didn't seem complete.
I think there were moments that added to that for me. So, for example, Elle doesn't like Max. Mm-hmm. Well, that never comes around again. This is like the first time they see each other. We now know more about Max, and we like her.
Yeah.
And we know more about Elle, and now they meet, and it's just like, yeah, I don't like you.
Still,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only scene they get together. I don't like you. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't think Mike ever makes amends with Max either. And it's just like there was that closure didn't happen either. Like I feel like there were a couple little things. Oh man, the scene with Dustin and Dart did not like that either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why Dart would suddenly have some soft spot for Dustin. That makes no sense.
Why do you care?
It was like Jurassic World.
Yes. Oh my god.
All over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much to it. I just thought Steve was a badass. Steve was just cool. That was the takeaway I had in this episode was Steve
never
was
ceases to surprise how badass
just the coolest dude. And then helping Dustin out at the end. Like so not only does he fight Billy, he goes and he fights the demi-dogs. And then he takes Dustin to the dance and like gives him the hairstyle. Now Dustin's rocking the Steve hairstyle. And I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought I'd have more to say about the last episode, but I think it was now that I've had like some time to sit on it, it was just kind of like, all right, okay.
Yeah, it was underwhelming.
Like based on this ending, I'm not really looking forward to season 3.
Really?
Because there's no intro or beginning to season 3 that I'm gonna buy as to like. Why are we back in the upside down world again if the portal's closed? Like it's gonna be something that no one has seen as a viewer for them to have to reopen up that world and that connection again. So unless Will's straight up just fucked for life after his experiences and he's a constant portal, like humans are the portal between both of the worlds.
Oh,
that could be the only thought I could see them, bringing that back. Why that thing's hovering over the school.
I just saw this as like a way to round out some stuff that happened in the season and just kind of continue on the story. I mean, I don't think they wanted to surprise too. I think they still may not even know what they're doing for season 3, so they kind of had like a safe ending, and they're kind of who knows?
Right. An ending where like it doesn't necessarily need a sequel. It just kind of leaves you kind of with a disturbing image to finish it off. You know what I mean? Kind of like season 1, but
I mean, all that really did was remind us that, like, okay, evil's still lurking. Good did not necessarily defeat evil.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Right.
I did like. There were a couple of scenes that was really touching me at the very end, which was when the dude comes over. Nancy's chaperoning at the dance, and the little kid comes over, and he's like, "What's in this punch?" And she's like, "Pure evil." And that was the same thing from the party. Remember before she just got shit faced.
Right.
And then I really liked the moment where. She dances with Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like Dustin, I thought that was kind of cute. And then because also if you guys remember, I think like in episode 1 or 2 of the series, Dustin's like, "Hey, where's Nancy?" and asking Mike about Nancy. And I was like, "Oh, she used to be cool. She used to hang out with us."
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. It's like, okay, after all this that's gone down, like it's got that relationship still there.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Really sweet moment.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, and then you also kind of see the news story in the background. Sorry.
You're fine.
You also see like the news story in the background, right?
What was the
like
news story?
It was like there was a chemical leak, and that's what caused Barb's death. That's why Barb got a funeral.
The story gets leaked. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of Born Identity there, where it's like exposing what happened to her character. Like, on the
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had to because there was so much outcry last season about how the show just forgot about Barb.
She was in the finale.
Yeah. So she gets her funeral.
Her lifeless body was it?
Yeah.
It was in the finale.
That's hilarious. So overall, season 2, we're all a little lukewarm on it, right? Like, I mean, we liked it, but it didn't have the same impact on us as season 2. The acting obviously was better, but like the story as a whole kind of left a little to be desired.
Yeah. I think Jason's a little lukewarmer than us, but
no, I really liked it. I mean, I really want to see it again. I'm being super critical just because thinking about season 1 and stuff too, and I think they did it. This was a really, really good season 2. This was a really good continuation. Like I said before, the characters felt the same. Everything felt in the world of Stranger Things. Nothing felt really too outside of it, and that's all you can really hope for in a sequel.
Right. All right, guys. Well, that's season 2 for you. That's a lot to take in. That's like over a 2-hour podcast. Thanks for tuning in with us. And if we have any more thoughts, we'll chime in. Thanks, Sonny. Thank you, Jason. You still gonna shout out your Twitter, Sonny? Or are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I forgot what it was.
TBD on that one.
TBD.
Yeah.
Guys, want to let y'all know we switched podcast hosts, so there's been a change in our URL, but the iTunes and Google Play feed should all be the same. So look for us wherever you get your podcasts. But now our webcast, our website is nocampspodcast.podbean.com.
Podbean?
Podbean, yes. We switched.
What's a Podbean?
Good question. It's like a sensu bean, but for podcasts. But yeah, so guys, we've switched. Really appreciate it if you guys could give us some iTunes reviews. It goes a long way for us to get on the iTunes charts and everything. So
but no bad reviews. We don't.
Yeah, no bad reviews. 4 stars and above only. And tell your friends. And hope you guys liked it. And let us know your thoughts on Stranger Things. Email us at nocampspod@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at nocampspodcast. All right, guys. Thanks.
Peace.
Thanks.